Hey there guys and gals, and welcome back to the D4A channel. Today I'm going to show you how to remove, restore and rebuild your steering rack. Now, before we start doing anything to the steering rack, the first thing you need to do is remove it from your car. We are going to start by disconnecting the steering rack from the universal joint. The universal joint is located very close to your brake pedal, and we are going to make marks where the steering rack connects to the universal joint and where the universal joint connects to the main steering shaft. We are doing this to ensure the steering rack is installed back in the same position as it was removed from, and the marks will help you align it and ensure it's installed back in the same position. To remove the steering rack from the universal joint, all you need to do is unbolt these two bolts, and to remove only the steering rack, you just need to unbolt the lower bolt. Now, to get access to the steering rack, you have to remove this little panel that's located on the undercarriage of the car, and it's held in by 4 bolts. Once you have access to the steering rack, it too is held just by 4 bolts and 2 brackets. Now, these are exposed to the elements sometimes, so some heat and a penetrating lubricant and an impact gun are definitely helpful here. Once the bolts are out, the steering rack will drop, and all you have to do is slide it out and away from your car. Once you have removed the steering rack from your car, you can start working on its reconditioning and its rebuild. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is, before I remove anything from the steering rack, I'm going to restore this metal part here. I'm going to use a wire wheel brush to remove the rust, and I'm going to paint it with some primer and then another coat or maybe 2 coats of some nice black paint. I'm going to do this first before removing anything because I'm not reusing any of these parts. The rubber boots, the tie rods, it's all going away, and that's going to save me some time because I don't have to, look out for these parts. I don't have to mask them or do anything. I can just work right away, and the only thing I'm going to mask and protect is this part here. It's the bearing and the part that connects to the universal joint. Here is our freshly painted steering rack along with the brackets and rubber steering rack bushings. And here is everything we are going to replace. So what we have here, we have brand new polyurethane steering rack bushings made by Kreyn. We have brand new inner tie rods, brand new outer tie rods. We have our steering rack bushing, and we have our rubber boots. To remove the rubber boot, we're going to get some pliers, squeeze this clamp, and move it here. And then here we have another clamp, as you can see there, and this one needs a screwdriver to be removed. The clamp is also, this one is also as well, but this has been sitting on the rack for ages, so it's probably going to be on there very tightly. Might require some force. Okay, once you have removed the rubber boot, you're going to have access to your inner tie rod and the claw washer that holds it in place. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to unstake the claw washer so we can remove the inner tie rod. Once you have completely unstaked your claw washer, you will notice that on the inner tie rod there's a flat surface, and you will also find one on your rack. So these are the two surfaces you will grab with two wrenches in order to loosen the inner tie rod. On the other end of our steering rack is our plastic. That's the white part here. It's our plastic steering rack bushing. To access it, we're going to push the steering rack all the way in and then pull the other part of the steering rack until the plastic bushing is completely free. Once it's free, the way to remove it is to push these 3 plastic pins in, and as you push them in, you have to block it, each side with a little piece of paper, because it has the tendency, to get the pins back into its place. Once you push them in and they are blocked with a little piece of paper, you can easily pull them out using pliers. So here we have our old plastic bushing, and now we're going to install the new one. Here's our new plastic bushing in case you have a Toyota MR2 Mark I. Here is the Toyota part number. Toyota still makes these. So installing it is super easy. It has the 3 pins just like the old one. Okay, there you go. There's 1, 2 and 3. And you're going to align them with the holes in your steering rack. Let me get it closer for you. Okay. So align and then simply squeeze, and it's going to pop in. There we go. Check that it has popped in all the 3 sides. So it's in securely, and now we are going to get the steering rack back into its position. Okay, there we have, the bushing has been replaced. Now it's time to install our outer and our inner tie rod ends. We are going to start by getting our steering rack and our new claw washers, and we are going to get the little claws turned towards the inside and align them with the grooves on the steering rack, like so. Once you put them in correctly, you will know, because the claw washer won't be able to turn. Once you have put in the claw washer properly, you are going to get your inner tie rod end and screw it in place. We are again going to use the 2 wrench method to secure and tighten the inner tie rod to the steering rack. Okay, so once the tie rod is on there tight enough, you are going to get a hammer and you are going to hammer your claw washer like so onto your inner tie rod end. Now what this does is that even if the tie rod starts to come loose, the claw washer will prevent it, from going completely loose. Now when you're doing this, when you're hammering, when you're staking the claw washer, be careful not to hit your steering rack. Okay, so here you can see a properly staked claw washer. And this inner tie rod isn't going anywhere. So once both our new inner tie rod ends are on our steering rack securely, as you can see here, there's one, there's the other, we are going to get a towel and we are going to wipe all the old grease from our steering rack and we are going to apply some new grease. Once everything has been nicely greased up, we are going to install our new rubber boots. So obviously the broad end goes here and the narrow end goes on the inner tie rod end. Once you manage to pull the rubber boot onto the rack, use the provided cable tie to keep the boot securely fastened onto the steering rack. Now it's time to install the outer tie rod ends. We're going to start by getting our old outer tie rod that is still on the old inner tie rod end. You're going to loosen this bolt and you are going to count the number of revolutions it takes to remove the old outer tie rod end. You also want to make sure that you are counting and removing it on the same side as the new one will be installed on. So the two outer tie rod ends might have a different number of revolutions on them. So we're going to count now. So this is 1, 2, 3, 14, 15. Okay, that was 15 revolutions. And now we are going to install the new one by turning it 15 times. Of course, first we are going to put on the nut that's going to tighten the new outer tie rod end. Okay, so here we go. Once you thread it on, okay, so it threads right about here. So we're going to start from there. So here we go. 1, 2, 14, 15. We are now going to get the nut on there and then again use our 2 wrenches to make sure it is tight. Now the last thing that's left to install is so simple, it doesn't even require an explanation, and it's the bushings. Now these are, you simply spread them apart. There we have one. And there we have the other. So here you go guys, one fully rebuilt, restored steering rack. As you have seen, a pretty simple job. You can do this yourself with some very basic tools, save some money and restore your good steering wheel feel, feedback and eliminate steering wheel play. Now if you liked the video, don't forget to share, like, comment and subscribe. If you have any questions about this rebuild, hit me up in the comment section and I will try to answer to the best of my abilities. So also do stay tuned for upcoming videos and my bike carb conversion and the suspension overhaul of my MR2 Mark I. So I guess that's pretty much it for today. Thanks a lot for watching and I will leave you with some nice before and after shots of my steering rack. So that's pretty much it. See you soon on the D4A channel.